Involving the church. We're joined by the Commission for the Promotion and the Protection of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, chairperson Thoko Mkhwanazi Xaluva. A very good evening to you and welcome to SABC. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening and thanks for having us.
Now, you just heard the Police Minister Fikile Mbalula saying that the congregants at Mancoba 7's Angels Ministries are actually being hypnotized than being prayed for. How seriously do you take these claims?
You know, when we met with the church leaders, the 7 angels, they call themselves angels, we did say they are a ticking time bomb. We could tell that how they were running their church was more of a cult than a church. If people are supposed to hand over all their worldly goods, go and stay there and be looked after by the church members, and no one is working, no one is going to school, what then happens when the money runs out? We've been saying over and over, people are going to start dying. We never thought it would be the police. We thought maybe they'll go on a mass suicide kind of thing. We didn't think they'd be this creative. But we've always said something needs to happen there, and there's nothing in the current legislation that allows anybody to stop what was happening there.
So having said that, will this church be investigated?
Well, I think this is not a church. As Minister Mbalula was saying, they need to be shut down now that a crime has happened there.
Well, they call themselves a church.
That's what they call themselves. But when we investigated, we said all the parameters and the doctrine and all those basic things that a church should have, they did not show that. All they had was a lot of people living there, waiting to be looked after by the 7 young men who call themselves angels. They think school is satanic. They think the constitution was made in hell, and they think no one should work. People should just bring their everything and stay there. So you wouldn't say it is a normal church, and we don't have current legislation to deal with such. That's why we've all tried to stop them, but we discovered that we do not have any authority until Parliament passes legislation.
What kind of legislation
We're looking at
a
peer review mechanism. Like lawyers have their law society. Every profession has its own enabling legislation that allows for a peer review mechanism.
Give us more detail, if you can, about what kind of rights that have been violated against the congregants of this church and the occupants thereof.
You see, we've always said freedom, basic freedom of movement. The fact that children's rights to education were being violated. What we also discovered was that congregants' rights to health, for instance, they were not allowed to go to clinics if they were unwell. They would be prayed for. So a plethora of rights were being violated there. Constitutional rights. You
mentioned freedom and freedom of movement. I mean, that is one claim that they may use, to advance their agenda. How does the CRL then draw the line between congregants dispensing patronage and loyalty to their religious organization on the one hand, and then being conscious to their rights being violated on the other hand? Where do strike the balance?
It's a serious struggle in the country, because you find that most people participate willingly in their own oppression in these religious settings, because they believe there's a higher being at play here, there's God involved. And when we're a Christian, and it's the whole issue around the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit, and when people really believe, they do believe, and then they get exploited. That's why our study we called the commercialization of religion and the abuse of people's beliefs. Because we realized that people were capitalizing on the fact that as Christians we believe in all these things that they are telling us. When they tell us God sent them to earth and they are angels from heaven, and they've been brought here to catch the devil and take him back to his place in hell, we realized that people truly believed that these people were angels from heaven, and everyone who was there was a true believer that their kids shouldn't go to school. Some of the kids are 20 years old and they've never been to a class.
What if I put it to you that each and every religious organization has got its own belief mechanisms? They've got their own modes of worship. And then the CRL is now tampering or interfering in those kind of belief mechanisms.
We say whatever belief system you have should be within the Constitution. The minute you start violating our South African Bible, then there's a problem. When you violate the rights of children from going to school, then there's a problem. When you violate the rights of children to health, to get their immunization and all sorts of other things, there's a problem. You say when adults voluntarily give away their worldly goods, it's their belief. There's nothing illegal about that. It could be dangerous that when it then doesn't happen, then there will be a problem when the money runs dry. But it's their right to give away whatever they have.
You touched on the Constitution. I mean, in May last year, the Freedom of Religion in South Africa wrote an open letter to the CRL, disputing the CRL claims that it is actually the first and the final arbiter of religion in South Africa. Now, my reading of Section 185 of the Constitution suggests that the CRL is only an advisory body.
We never claim to be the final arbiters. In this country, the final arbiters in any legal matter is the Constitutional Court. And that problem, I don't know what they meant by us being the final arbiters, because even in the report, we say that when the peer review mechanism people, the peer review committee has taken a decision that the religious people don't like, they have a right to go to the High Court, they have a right to take it all the way to the Constitutional Court. So there can be no final arbiters in between the people and the Constitutional Court. So, once people repeat something often enough, it sometimes sounds like the truth. We're a Chapter 9 institution. We believe in the rule of law. We believe in the Constitutional Court being the final arbiters in every matter that affects people.
Just a quick one, we haven't got much time.
Yes.
What's the update regarding the investigations of such churches belonging to Bopasta Mboro and the petrol pastors and the snake pastors, etc.?
What we did was to submit our recommendations to Parliament, as outlined in our Act, to say they need to pass legislation that will give teeth to a peer review mechanism to umbrella organizations like the South African Council of Churches and a whole lot of others, so that they can hold the religious practitioners to account. Right now, there's no legal framework to do that.
Okay.
So we're waiting for Parliament, basically.
So basically, all these churches now have the carte blanche to do as they please while you await Parliament.
They are doing that right now.
So sad.
Yes.
All right, Thoko Xaluva, thank you so much for joining us this hour. That is the CRL chairperson, Thoko Mkhwanazi Xaluva, speaking to us here in our Johannesburg studios. This is Primetime News. Let's go for an ad break now.